The hip-hop writer is a creator, composing understanding words of culture brilliance, powering a rebalance of the elements equally. Pages of rejuvenated reaffirmation. Simply the almighty leadership of insightful craft work that stands to build through any confrontation born to be. Yet his daily duty is as a journalist that questions properly and uses his ears to filter the real. And as the art decays by dilution, he concentrates the best again and again, exposing it into print. Today's journalist and tomorrow's historian, he listens to share. Here is that necessary attempt, executed again and again and again. This is the Power Right Show on S.STREET Media. This is your brother, the lone low life with the home-sewn garment, the Boricua with the build, the true and living God stepping in score, Sunez Allah, a.k.a. S.STREET Low. And we're on S.STREET Media, the evolution of media, where every intrigue will have its own show, every incredible thought will have its own episode, and every timeless insight will be archived. And this show is, as I said, always, and as I say every time, on my element of hip-hop, what I like to call the writer of art on art and science on music. The only show in history, to my knowledge, on this hip-hop writer element that I helped pioneer with over 25 years of work, writing, and all that other good stuff. You know what I mean? And one of those works to start the show and prove that is my book here, The Filtered Real, Essays from the Invisible Renaissance. A book that's doing really, really great. I can't ask for more love, more acclaim, more respect, and people enjoying the book, really enjoying the book, and looking up the artist and really enjoying the music that I'm talking about in this book. I called it The Filtered Real because I was being overloaded with music when I really got back into writing in the early 2010s. And I thought there was so much music that I said, you know what, I'll focus on what I always focus on, the album. I've always been an album person. I always felt like the album was the constructed peak of an artist's, work. And there were a lot of new singles that were coming out, a lot of songs, loose songs, things like that, and videos. And a lot of them were worthy and deserved a little bit of light to help push that artist to the next level easier, to get that, that great album work, that LP work, that EP work. So I started to write a column called The Filtered Real and started to write about select songs and stuff. And maybe like, shorter works, like EPs that I couldn't handle. In the early 2000s, maybe you got like 10, 15, maybe 20 EPs a year. Nowadays, in the last 3 years, you get about 50, 60. I think, I don't know what number I'm at now in my total list, but as far as noteworthy EPs, I'm easily at like almost 30. And those are the ones I consider noteworthy. And I'm usually a little bit more critical of the shorter work, because it's usually just an MC throwing things together and stuff, even if they're MC of a high caliber. But I was overloaded, so I write this column, The Filtered Real, and eventually even I was overloaded to write the column. And by the end of the decade, the two things I had realized, that a lot of the work I was doing was filtering the real, because if you go search online, I'm usually, for a lot of artists that really dominated this decade, I might be the only person to write about them in massive detail. And I don't mean like some weak detail. This guy's hot. He's the next thing. He's the next buzz. Who's hot, who's not type pieces. That's what really we got in the blogosphere, right? Who's hot, who's not, and throwing things up like that. I'm talking about real in-depth pieces, and often interviews and long features. And it was about 2012, 2013, I started absolutely saying that this was a renaissance. But I started to call it, I immediately called it invisible, because by the 2000, man, I think it was by 2000, I think it was, it's funny, we'll kind of have this go full circle. And as my producer put that idea in my head, crash, we'll put that in full circle and crash. I I think the buzz for Kanye back in the 2000s and stuff, around 2004, I was already, by 2004, I was already calling that decade the Dark Ages, though. I think it was a combination to how frustrating it was to write about hip hop, because you couldn't. And I just felt that the artists that were getting, not just the artists that were being put out there and blowing up, that's one thing, but the artists that were being lauded as like really deep and exceptional artists, I thought were fraudulent, you know, or just really diluted versions of what we could have, and the possibility of what we could have, you know. And you know, that's something I'm going to write about too. You know, I got to make a whole book on the Dark Ages, you know what I mean? My perspective, you know. But about 2012, I started to call it the Invisible Renaissance. I remember I was at, where I officially was like, I told somebody, I was at Spit Gem's album release party for Fuck the Radio, you know, one of his great albums, you know. And that was the first time, by the way, and that's why I had mentioned that to CF, Constant Flow. The first time I ever saw Constant Flow get on the mic, you know. I didn't really know who he was, you know. And Spit Gem's big guy, right? Everybody knows Spit Gems is huge, you know. And he invites Constant Flow to get on stage, and Constant Flow happens to be next to me in the crowd. It's a big stage, you know. You kind of, you know, if you didn't want to fall though, you probably would go up the steps on the side. But I forget where this was, but you know, Constant Flow, big as he is, he climbs up. So these guys are huge, Gems and Constant Flow. So it looks like some Marvel superheroes type stuff. It looks like Beast is calling Thing up on stage, and I'm seeing all this great stuff happen. Seeing Spit Gems do songs with Nems. I'm seeing all this stuff. I'm seeing Broken Home, Crew, FU, A1, and I feel like the only one witnessing it. See Starvin' B, one of the multiple times, not the only time I saw Starvin' B perform with no voice. Starvin' B, the only MC who actually gave good shows with no voice at all, you know. You know, just called it in and he got it off to the crowd. But I was talking to Napoleon the Legend on the side and what I thought. And I said, this is an invisible renaissance, you know. Nobody will see it, but it's happening, you know. It's happening. It's a renaissance of the music, and it had to be invisible because the Dark Ages cast such a big shadow. You know what I mean? So that's when I started to call it the Invisible Renaissance, and that's where the title of the book came from. The Filtered Real Essays from the Invisible Renaissance. And, you know, it's only a portion. It's only a small portion of the work that I was doing this whole decade, you know, and there's so many other books that I have that are going to come out and really detail the Invisible Renaissance, this last decade, this decade that we're in coming up. And of course, as I said, the Dark Ages and stuff from a different perspective than it's just giving, you know, fake ass flowers to Eminem and Jay-Z all the time. You know what I mean? As the vanguard. But oh man, yo, I come here all these months. I should, you know, we should be talking about hip hop only. That's what I want to do. I want to catch you up on all the music, give little vignettes of music, and that way you can decide, and then I could go into detail about particular projects. You know, not too much detail, but really let you know what's been going on and stuff in the music. But boy, I've got to give some time to these commentaries because they're important. You know what I mean? I think I'll probably be, you know what I'm saying? You know, I got to give a shout out to the sister Erica Laprie and her and shit like that podcast. She did a podcast on the whole entanglement, Will Smith Jada issue. You know what I mean? You could just call it entanglement, and you know what it is, though. You know what I mean? My producer, he's one of the legends that was on on social media with the legendary commentaries. I was going on Instagram just to hear what he was writing, though. It was legendary. But yo, if you don't find some kind of humor in all this, though, but and also take it as a serious issue too, you know what I mean? But here's one thing, though. I say this, right? Everything is real. If you don't, we live in an age of social media, right? So if you don't want to be commented on, stay off of it. If you don't want to have people dissect your life and stuff, then don't be good at stuff. How about that? Don't be good at anything. Nobody will talk about you if you're no good at anything. You know, if you suck at stuff and you blow up, which is the general, consensus mostly that people go for, and people are obsessed with in this era. Well, that's all you got, right? That's all you got. So you should be happy, whatever they say about you, because you suck. You know what I mean? And what's interesting with the entanglements, I just found it funny, though, is that people started to explain. This is one little thing I just want to throw in there. I don't want to throw in too much, everybody explained the issue using different words, too. You know what I mean? So, when you see somebody justifying it, they'll go, she had to do the entanglement so that way she could get to healing. Man, healing just means feel good, though. Come on, you just want to continue, regular orgasms that you were feeling. Regular orgasms. Let's not call it healing and stuff like that. Healing is after I'm training and I'm sore and I get some healing, I need some rest and everything, I get a massage and stuff. That's not healing, you know what I mean? And let's be honest, though, right? I don't know if my producer put it in such good terms, though. If he had better ones, I know if these weren't his, then he had better ones, though. But I just saw this as a story of a cougar, going out and getting prey. A cougar going out and getting prey. So this is more of a BBC documentary, you know what I mean? This is more of a BBC documentary. So we want this kid, August, not to snitch and not to say what a great thing that happened to him and all that and use it for his life. Sorry, this is the millennial age, though. You know what I mean? Snitching and conformity and ethos, they don't exist. You know what I mean? And, he's just victim of a cougar. So what ethos would he have, though? You know what I mean? Like, keep quiet, though, This is like a PG rated. Or not PG rated, but like a R rated, but not like really evil, violence rated Lifetime movie. It's like a Lifetime movie, but nobody died at the end. That's what this was, right? It was BET Lifetime. Remember BET had that women's channel? Do they still have that women's channel? This is the show. This is the show they have, though. You know what I mean? But I never seen such a cleverness of words, though. I was like, everybody turned into the jizza overnight, right? Like how we love jizza, like he'll use the word boulder instead of rock. That's what this was, like I was like, yo, the MCing that they're putting out there, you know what I mean? But man, you can't call it what it is, though, And then when you call it what it is, you're a loose cannon, like Nick Cannon, right? The loose cannon. Right? He nicked off more than he could chew. You know what I mean? What's interesting, right? Is that a lot, there was a quote. I want to read you a quote from the interview where he got in trouble. Nobody noticed this. I just found this ironic. There's no build here. No insight here as far as the build about Jews or anything. But Nick Cannon, while he's starting, he's all revved up. You revved up to build. They want to build, you know what I'm saying, God? Like, they want to build. Everybody want to build. But they don't want to get that destroyed. They don't want to, they want to make a La World Manifesto, but they, when it's time to fess up, you can't man up. You know what I mean? That's why it's manifest. You know what I mean? He said, he's all hype in the beginning. He said, there's Nick Cannon. He says, there's no reason to be scared of anything when you're speaking the truth. Woo. Let's cut that up. Let's cut that up and DJ that up, right? We don't have DJ Swift here, right? Yo, what's interesting is this, right? I would like to liken my career to Nick Cannon. Let's try it, okay? Let's liken my career to Nick Cannon, though. I'm bizarro Nick Cannon. Every single thing that I do, though, isn't coonery. It's the opposite of coonery. They go, hey, you want to host a show that, does some shucking and jiving and does some jokes and wiles out and stuff? And said, yeah, you want to dress like a girl and feminize yourself and do, silly skits? Nah, I can't do that. I can't do any of that. Well, then you can't do this. I only talk about one thing, Nick Cannon's career doesn't have any of his projects. I'm going to say everyone, okay? Because if I said everyone, then I would have to say all of the other ones are just bad projects, generally. But nearly every Nick Cannon work, nearly every Nick Cannon project is a crossover work. It's meant to be diluted. It's actually meant not to be intelligent. It's actually meant to be diluted. It's meant to be glossed over. It's meant to have syrup on it. It's meant to have glitter all over it. You know what I mean? So when he says that there's nothing scared, do you know that it's more dangerous for him to say stuff than it would be for me? After I do my show here and I speak and I show and prove and stuff, if I didn't show and prove, I'd get challenged to show and prove. And then I show and prove. After Nick Cannon does a show, he doesn't have to show and prove. He said the thing that doesn't help his cause. What is his cause? The work is about glossing over, is about glitterizing the reality of black entertainment. That's what he does. So you could lose that, and speaking the truth got everything to do with it. That's exactly what ruins the glitter. You know what I'm saying? You can't paint your My Little Pony like that. You know what I'm saying? You don't paint your My Little Pony, you know what I mean, with the, at the Vandal Hour. You know what I mean? That's a different show. You know what I mean? They don't go together. So it's funny that people are wondering how he could buckle and stuff like that. Well, he had something to lose. Most of the people commenting, they don't have nothing to lose. You know what I mean? He broke the rule. If I speak the truth, I didn't break any rules. You know what I mean? They didn't tell him, no, listen, Nick Cannon, you do your thing, and you'll always have a good space here with us folk that run this stuff, as long as you always tell the truth. That wasn't in the contract. The contract was keep it glitty. Keep it litty. Right? Keep it rainbow fresh. Right? Keep it rainbow fresh. He didn't keep it rainbow fresh, so he got tossed. He got tossed. He had to apologize immediately. When he goes on there and he says, hey, listen, yeah, that's true. These Jews, they run stuff. We know that. Go to ABC. Go to the mass media. Look at who owns the newspapers, right? The major newspapers, the major media. Duh. You know what I'm saying? It's duh. They're all Jewish names. All right? But he's being employed by them. So it happened. Right? He got cut off. You know what I mean? It's like, listen, if you're on my team, though, and we're talking about the Mets, though, don't come around with that Yankee shit. I don't care if you're right about the Yankees being the better winners and the Mets being losers. You start talking that Mets, though, I fire you. You're out of the cipher. Right? You know why? Because I'm a Mets fan. It's as simple as that. You can't point out the rulers if you're on the ruler's team. It's just the way it is. You know? So it's like we were looking for someone. I don't understand why it never fails with our people. We always look for someone to blow up commercially and then kick the realness in the commercial cipher. You know what I'm saying? Like they want him to shuck and jive and like, dude, everything you say. Oh, yeah, I don't know. And we're like, oh, man, I can't believe he did that. Oh, he's got talent, but, I don't know. I'm going to watch anyway. Da, da, da. And then all of a sudden you want him to wipe off the paint, wipe off the clown paint and say, listen, it's a conspiracy. They're all running this, though. They want us to keep it like this, and they want to keep it like that. It doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? It doesn't work the other way either sometimes either. Where a person like me is a fly in a wall. You know what I mean? And I've seen the the label man, the white man, and literally the end of Protect Your Neck, Jizz's verse, you know what I mean? With the short arm and long pockets, you know what I mean? Who plays an electric guitar, deciding what rap is, right? I've seen that. The funders of labels, the funders of your favorite black labels are really just subsidiaries under a white-owned label, right? I'll give you an example. I remember one time I did an interview for Terror Squad. Everybody was there except Big Pun. Big Pun was already so obese that he couldn't travel anymore. But I didn't know that. They didn't tell me that. You know what I mean? They were still like, hoping that he would lose weight and stuff like that, right? First Terror Squad album, though. And they release What You Gonna Do. A lot of people don't know, maybe because they didn't get to read my article because it was long and I didn't want to cut it, and so they didn't put it, right? It didn't end up in Vibe, you know what I mean? What You're Gonna Do is the first single. But the actual first single, I forget the name of the song, but there was a posse cut with all of Terror Squad, and that was supposed to be the single that they make a video for, right? When the so-called excuse that they were given why they couldn't use that as the single was because they had like a cops, like a killing cop thing reference on the chorus. What's interesting is that this is 1999 into 2000, and you already see that the labels by the late 90s, they're already catching on to lyrics that they don't want to hear. You know what I mean? They probably couldn't catch on. It took all the way to 1997 for them to catch on. You know what I mean? And I think that one of the big instances, a lot of people don't talk about those, probably the OHHLA site, the Original Hip Hop Lyrics Archive website. That was the first site with lyrics on them. In fact, that's where the bulk of all the old lyrics that Genius.com flaunts out there, that's where they got it from. They didn't get anybody to transcribe old 90s records. They just jacked everything that was on the other site. You know what I mean? And if you're a Woo head, there used to be a site called Chamber Darts with a Z at the end, Chamber Darts. And they had Woo lyrics for every single Woo artist, though. You know what I mean? And it was just fans doing it. So they got a lot of stuff wrong, though, but they would, they were willing to take corrections and stuff, because they didn't know what they were saying, Like, imagine, trying to, you never heard of the knowledge itself, you don't really know it, and you're trying to, and then you got to try to transcribe Supreme Clientele. Add that, the abstract lyrics, all that. It's a mess. But there was a foundation for Genius.com that was out there. You know what I mean? And so by 1999, they were already reading through all this stuff. So they were already getting familiar with lyrics that they didn't want to hear. And I made a mistake. I thought I almost made a mistake. I'm there at the table, and Fat Joe is right next to me, right? My frame, I'm a 5'4", brother. You know what I mean? Fat Joe is huge. He's still Fat Joe then. He's not like taller, Pitbull. You know what I mean? As he is now. Like his frame now was more like taller Pitbull, right? I said, how come you didn't get to release the single you want if it's your label? Because remember, if you read the label, they was their own TS, imprint. You know what I mean? And Fat Joe bangs the table. He bangs the table. He goes, damn it. He said, because they won't let us, though, and they still own it. It's just a subsidiary. And I'm like, subsidiary. What does that mean? That's business stuff. You know what I mean? And I'm in a business school, and I got better lessons from the interviews with the MCs than I did at the school that I was at getting a business degree. You know what I mean? I learned more about business, cataloging the plight of artists at the labels that they were in than I did at the school that I was at, because they favored no entrepreneurship. You know what I mean? If you didn't make it into a big six firm, if you didn't make it into this format, into a company, then you're no good. And what if you don't? What if there's no model that you want to adhere to? You know what I mean? What if you want to learn it, but you don't want to do any of that with them? Well, there's no place for you. There's no place for you. But you know what's crazy, right? Is that when we look at things like that, right? And I said this in my class, my Peace Course class, that I now stream online on my YouTube channel, Sunez 7, number 7. I talked about the Nick Cannon situation. You know what I mean? And what's interesting is that a lot of people haven't really read the books that are being referenced. You know what I mean? They never heard about the books being referenced. And here's an interesting thing, and I'll just keep it here. Every time we talk about race, right? One thing that we're going to have to deal with, no matter what people want to say, is when we talk about equality, it doesn't mean equalizing the levels and making them the same. It doesn't mean saying that it's all the same. You know, I just saw like that clip from Bill Nye, the science guy, that's circulating around. You know, everybody's from Africa, but we all just got different shades because we're in different places in the environment and stuff. That sounds really sweet, you know? It sounds really sweet, you know? He glitterized science as well. And that's why Bill Nye, the science guy, is a commercial science teacher in the commercial sphere. But the truth is that what Nick Cannon was talking about, he was muddling things like the teachings, you know, things that he heard from Farrakhan. He was putting together things from the ISIS papers, right? And it was mainly the ISIS papers that he was getting his ideas from, which is a great book to read. And the idea of the ISIS papers is that according to her concept that she's explaining, and this is about like in the later chapters in the book, it might even be the next to last chapters. She says, because of their lack of melanin, the reality of the Caucasian, the European, the white man, aka, they actually are in conflict with the environments that they live in. And no matter what we try to say, that once they travel the world, they continue to be in conflict with the environments that they live in, whether it be due to the harsh sun, whether it be due to all of these factors that go into it, whether nutrient absorption, all of these things that we can find out. And we could say, no, they do great in Europe. I'm sorry, what history book were you reading? You know what I mean? They were doing great in Europe, though. No, they ventured out of Europe because they were doing horrible there, too. So there's this assumption that the Europeans' history was really beautiful and really a panacea of gorgeousness while they were in Europe, supposedly alone in the cold weather. They do great with cold weather. So if you make everything cold, they do great. That's not really the case, though. They were eating gruel and just killing animals on the spree, no, you know, and just limited amounts of cattle and stuff. No real agriculture, right? Absolutely, yeah. So the thing is, right? When Nick Cannon is bringing up all these things, what's not being brought up, though, is we try to balance everything out. But what's also happening is that we're lowering the things that we need to learn about our own people. There was a thing that he said. He had said that it was our melanin, what we call our soul. And then he used the word called compassion. You know, and it's a shame that we won't see Nick Cannon try to build on that and try to learn from that. You know what I mean? Because it was really what Francis Cress Welsing was getting at. Because when we focus on our people, we have to look at all of the empires we've had, how there isn't really a history of them deteriorating through destruction. No matter what we say about our falls of civilization, the dynasties, all of the dynasties of ancient Egypt / aka Kemet, they didn't really dissolve through the destruction of man per se. You know, they fell through the destruction of the dissemination of the knowledge that they had and who got this knowledge. You know what I mean? And therein lies, you know, the reality of the European and his conquering waves, right? So it's interesting though. There's a lot of research that we have to do. You know what I mean? And we ought to research it from the vantage point of how great, you know, the things that we have done, as opposed to dumbing down everything to say it's all the same and it has no difference. That would be incorrect. So as I continue and conclude these commentaries, I can't really conclude the commentaries without talking about Kanye West. I could make a nickname for him and all this kind of stuff. It gets tiring though, you know? Like years ago, I wrote a piece called The Nigger Maguire. I called him the Nigger Maguire because it was almost like he was, what was the character? He was the football player, right? You know, Cuba Gooding's character, but he also was Jerry Maguire all rolled up into one. It's like he was promoting himself, but also looking for his own way too. You know what I mean? And it's a sick combination, you know what I mean? And it gets tiring. And, you know, my producer had a great concept on it, you know? But here's the thing, though. This is what I really want to talk about, because I want to leave my producer's understanding to when he decides to share it, because it's golden, it's jewels, it's filled with jewels. But I want to take credit for something. Since 2004, I've been saying I don't want to hear this guy ever. I don't want to hear him rap. I don't want to hear him talk. I don't want to hear him run for president, though. I've been telling everybody since College Dropout that he doesn't belong on the mic, that we don't need to hear him talk, that he needs to just produce beats, that it's better if he doesn't talk about anything. You know what I'm saying? And that's bearing out, right? What would the world be, though? What different world we would have, though, if he didn't, you know, if he just produced, you know? If he said, yes, Jay-Z, these beats will all go to you. I'm going to give you all these beats. Yeah, I was making it for myself, but I'm going to give them to you. You know what I mean? So you either give those beats to Ghostface or you give them to Jay-Z, because that's who they're going to go for, right? Because you know that some of the Blueprint beats were supposed to go to Ghostface, you know? Because the Blueprint, you know, let me just throw some blasphemy out there. The Blueprint musically is really just a bastardized version of Supreme Clientele. You know what I mean? Straight loops of really great digs, right? Not much going on. You know it's Bobby Blue playing. You know it's this guy. You know it's that. You know what I mean? Except for the commercial pop song that might be on it, like with you know, done by Timberland or something like that. You know what I mean? I was gonna say Justin Timberlake. You know why? Because I have no respect. I have no respect. You know, Timberland is an R&B producer. It's an R&B producer, you know what I mean? Just because techno has drums doesn't mean it's hip-hop. So whatever, you know, guys are doing stuff there, you know, I don't listen to a Keisha Cole album say those are bangers, you know what I mean? But they're pretty much hip-hop breaks, you know what I mean? But, and a lot of guys' beats, they just belong with Keisha Cole anyway. Side note. But, you know what's interesting is that with Kanye West running for president, though, if he even gets close to anything, I blame it on all you millennials that just want to be voyeurs and want to watch everything that looks crazy. You know what I mean? Because social media is like a place where there's a fight and you just want to stand there and watch the fight. And when Kanye does something, you just want to stand there and see what's going to happen to him and stuff. But I was talking to my sister. If you go to a campaign rally, you are campaigning for him. That's what they need, the numbers. Unless you're a reporter and you got a press badge, you're actually promoting his campaign, though. So stop going there, okay? Let the press cover all that stuff. You know what I mean? But you know what's interesting and what's sad? Is that there seems to be a bad logic that he's coming with. His biggest flip was that Harriet Tubman freed the slaves so that they could work for other white people. That is hilarious, though. But here's the thing. Don't we all work for different white people now? And if you listen to the context, though, he was trying to say that our intellectual capital still gets taken from us, though. And if you really do your Kanye crazy, is there a K? I can use Kanye crazy. Oh shit. Yeah, like if there's our crazy Kanye, you know, capitalizing, I don't know, of this whole thing, right? Do our KKKs on this, right?
Remember when he was going, it ain't Ralph though. It ain't Ralph. Remember his argument with Sway? That argument was because Sway was telling him to make his own clothes. And he was saying that we don't own the means of production. He basically was saying a Marxist realization. Because, by the way, Karl Marx was not a socialist. You know what I mean? Karl Marx just was saying that if you own the means of production, then you own everything. And he said that when the workers revolt, which they usually do, they take the means of production and then they become the oppressor. So Karl Marx was on some life sucks thing. You know, his theory was life sucks. And life is going to be some horrible, continuous cipher of just crabs in a barrel. That's what he said. Economy was crabs in a barrel to Karl Marx. Karl Marx's concepts had nothing to do with socialism, where there's supposed to be some consistent and ever-present check and balance of the means of production being spread out to empower all of the people, right? Like, let's say, for example, distributing land in Cuba to all the people, right? So they all have agricultural land, right? That's not, he didn't even go into all that stuff. But that's what Kanye was going into. And although I disagreed with the point, I understood what he was probably trying to get. But do you realize how much crap that we had to listen to over the years to try to see his train of thought? Just like I was explaining once in my class, though, the train of thought that KRS-One had when he said the thing about Africa Bambaataa, and he's supposed to support the children, and we hear him talking about leaders. Because if you read KRS-One's literature and all of his speeches in his last 3 books, then you know that KRS-One constantly talks about the leadership of hip-hop, or leadership, black leadership in general, being used, being toppled in order to destroy movements. That's a big thing with him. So sometimes these celebrities or people in the limelight, we forget that they have their own thesis statements that they want to get out there. They're obsessed with them, and they won't stop until all this concept is all laid out. But what's interesting is this, that I personally disagree with this concept that Kanye had. He said that as a campaign rallying point, he said that we need to own part of these companies like Adidas and things like that, that we do stuff for. Like if he designs for them and he makes them rich, we should own that stuff. I don't. I always think that the way is for us to get our own means of production. You know what I mean? And to, even if our means of production are of lower value, to continue to fight on that level. While we fight on both levels, though. So if you have the ability to get money at the means of production with the man, if it's uncompromised and you get a great cut out of it, then I see it. But there always should be some independent entrepreneurial end game. I'm not with demanding people to just give stuff to us. You know what I'm saying? Just because it sounds good, because that's absolutely not how the world has gone, ever. Not in these last 6,000 years since Caucasian people have been on this planet. And how many books we need for that one, though? Or am I going to get canceled? There's going to be a cancel culture for Sunez. Even though no one that's going to cancel me has read Ivan Van Sertima. They haven't read Charles Finch. They haven't read Chiquita Diop. They haven't read shit. You know what I mean? And cancel the subscription to me. But boy, what a damn rant, right? I want to talk about music, and I'm talking about these fools this whole time. You know what I'm saying? But you know what's interesting? Here's my thing, right? You want to know the great equalizer? This is my evil point that my mind comes back to all the time. If you suck at art, I don't want to see you in the cipher. I don't care how valuable you are in your points. I don't give a shit how much knowledge you get. I don't even care if you got knowledge of self. If you suck at this, don't be in the cipher. Because we got all of this stuff, Nick Cannon bumbling over here, and rightfully so. He ought to have bumbled, because I don't see any of you canceling him, though, but also sending him checks, though, so he could continue to do Wild 'N Out, though, on some other black network. You know what I mean? But boy, did Black Thought get these concepts out there in a simple, easy to digest, and supremely articulate way in one video with Thought versus Everybody. Man, he put Angela Davis clips. He put great clips from Khalid Muhammad, Elijah Muhammad. I think he put Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm in there. Put a lot of people in there in those 7 minutes. And of course, though, he killed it. He killed it. Let the lyricist, you know what I mean, do their stuff. You know what I mean? Let the lyricists do their stuff. You know what I mean? That was the thing out there. But you know, since I rambled so long, though, right? I want to get into the music, though, and I use that Black Thought to get into the segue. I have some other features. I'm gonna say features. You know what I mean? I never did that feature. You know, the feature on Facebook where people go your favorite concert, your first concerts. I'm gonna do a feature on that, but I'm gonna give you long stories about these concerts. You know what I mean? Because they're all weird. You know what I mean? And like even my first concert, though, I don't know when my first concert was. You know what I mean? That's crazy, right? When you really live this hip-hop, you're seeing hip-hop performed everywhere. What's your first concert? What's my first concert? I was watching hip-hop in the street. I was watching cyphers. I was going to open mics and stuff. I wasn't going to big shows. So I don't remember my first concert. You know what I mean? Like if you go show or concert like that. But I do have a first concert that I remember. I'm going to go into all that in another show. But I want to review some things, like things that we may have missed and stuff that are out there that we could check. I'm going to start with, since we're talking about videos, one other video that I thought was dope. There's a lot of good videos out there. I know right today, the broadcast of the show, I know West Side Gun released a video for something Allah. I don't know what to say. He's using Allah in the mysterious way, so I didn't pay too much attention. But from what I heard from the song, it sounds good. Same old hard bass drums, a lot of doom, 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 and, shit like that, right? He gives you all the stuff you need. But you never get to hear RZA rap militant anymore. And he's doing a movie called, I think he's producing it or directing it too, called Cutthroat City. And I clicked on it, and they made like an animated video for the song that goes with the movie, I guess. And, man, RZA was killing it. I just want to say that. I don't want to throw any bars here, nothing like that. And Michael Eric Dyson, the piece, but, RZA was building, and he sounded really good. That's the RZA I want to hear. You know what I mean? I don't want to hear, One thing about RZA, right, is that he has a lot of experiments that are good ideas, but they really failed. He has a lot of failures. And I don't like to say don't experiment. But when RZA fails, though, it could be a real, explosion in a negative way, Like, I didn't really like his Banks and Steel records. The rock records he was doing with, where RZA is Steel, like Bobby Steele's, and Banks was the other guy, is a singer. And the singer's not bad. He's a rock singer in the group. I forgot his name. But the rock music had no real edge. It didn't have punch. It just, I don't know. It didn't move. It didn't, it didn't have that thunder in it. You know what I mean? But and he did. I think he made 2 albums with that. One maybe an EP and an album, but definitely a full length. But RZA has quite a bit of fails right there. You know what I mean? Like the last two Wu-Tang albums. You know what I mean? Where you see what he's trying to do, but you're like, man, that was a bad idea. He's got a lot of those, but he's got a lot of experiments where you're like, wow, that's the next shit. That's why I don't get too mad. You know what I mean? The catalog is long enough to do that. But let's get into some music here. Before I get into music, I want to get into a musical documentary. There's a documentary on Netflix now called Underdogs, right? The whole premise of the documentary is everything I hate about hip hop. And then the hip hop documentary is about MCs and 2 MCs and producer that I got mad love for. And that's A1 and Phonics, right? The MC and producer duo, and Tiff the Gift. That sister is nice with it. You know what I mean? And No Sleep Records, if I have the label right. You write A1, AWON, or Phonics, PHONIKS on Bandcamp, you're going to get all their stuff. And you can stream everything. You know what I mean? And I remember them emailing me to check out something, and boy, it was really literally filtering the reel because I was going through a lot of junk that day in the email, and I was like, wow, this is some pure boom bap here. You know what I mean? I don't like to describe it so distinctly and dismissively, but they're a really great revivalist group. You know, like when the way Ninth Wonder was revivalist in the early 2000s, and they revived that boom bap sound. I think if I had to pick an ideal revivalist, I would say it's A1 and Phonics. You know, Phonics with his with the great jazz sampling, always gives you the hard kicks, the hard snares. You know, he makes albums and he gives you the instrumentals with it. You know what I mean? So he gives you all the goodies you need. But this documentary was done by like it's really a white man's, a European man's journey. And I'm deliberately generalizing. European foreigner's journey to finding A1 and Phonics and finding this hip hop that is going worldwide and stuff, because they have a great audience, you know. And I just find it intriguing. The talents of A1, how effortless he is on the mic, how his tone really vibrates, you know what I mean? Phonics makes perfect beats for the live show. They're clean, they're crisp, they're everything you think you want to hear when you think jazzy, jazz sampling of hip-hop beats, you know what I mean? So the addiction factor that they cue you in is crazy. And Tiff the Gift has the skills as well, you know what I mean? And she has a beautiful voice, you know? That's important for me as a female. I don't like female MCs that sound like men, though, you know what I mean? I don't know. This is my thing, you know what I mean? They're left-handers in the game. Don't throw it like a right-hander, you know what I mean? Have that little quirk in it, you know? And for a woman, sound like a woman, you know? Be you know what I mean? But the documentary was really insightful about their histories. A1 is actually originally from Medina, Brooklyn, you know what I mean? So he's one of us, but he made his name out in Newport, you know what I mean? And a great MC, you know. I actually they honored me by taking something I wrote for them, though, and used it for the liner notes for their 2015 album, Knowledge Yourself, you know. So I always got those brothers in high regard, you know. And it was a very interesting documentary. And if you're not up on A1 and Phonics and you want to see how dope they are live and how it resonates, yo, check it out. And one thing's to say, like, there's always an argument, though, like, some music is not gritty enough because white people like it and white people gravitate to the music more. So it's not really that hardcore. Let me tell you something, right? Don't always judge the value of music by who gravitates toward it. Because at one point, though, Redman was getting radio play. And Redman's one of the most abstract, most underground black comic, dirt and grime that you could get out there. You know what I'm saying? He's literally, Redman's comedy is like Dolomite. You know what I'm saying? And yet he was crossing over. So sometimes you can't always have that visual. You won't appreciate the artist. It's if they're crossing over intentionally or diluting the material is where you want to see. But the more you listen to A1 and Phonics, you see this is truly what they've always loved, and they would do it even if they didn't have this big audience like that. And they get everything they deserve. So if you want that boom bap addiction and stuff, that's definitely the way to go. It's a good documentary. It's a good documentary. I thought the guy was honest in his portrayal. He didn't try to. He really tried to get their stories, and he achieved that. You know, and they deserve their stories on the screen. You know what I mean? So some real hip hop, because you know when you search hip hop on Netflix, you get a lot of junk. You get a lot of junk. They go black legend, music legends, and you scroll and you're seeing Robert Johnson. You should watch that Robert Johnson documentary. You know, he's that pioneering blues guitarist that nobody knows about. You get to Miles Davis, which you should watch that. Absolutely watch Birth of the Cool, right? You should watch the Coltrane documentary. But all of a sudden, I'm seeing Nicki Minaj. I'm seeing trash rappers in the music legends. So I don't know why The Underdogs isn't cataloged in that little section there. And they got to fix that on Netflix. But check that out. Underdogs, one word. You know what I mean? But this year has a lot of work by a multitude. Like we see like all the last 3 years, we see a lot of music with a multitude of artists, though. So I'm just gonna throw some out there, guys that have multiple albums out there, and they're just flooding, and they did a lot of flooding while we were all quarantining. You know what I mean? So we were hearing, works, all the time. You know who's the MC that's getting better and better by the day? And his griminess, his voice, man, when you hear it, you know it's going to be a great, he's going to make great music. And that's G4 Jag. One of the deepest, most baritone voices in hip hop now coming up. It's gritty. It's got the right amount of gravel in it, so it grits. And he's got 3 projects. He's got a solo album, Still Surviving. He's got one he did with Dirty Diggs, the producers, called Keep Going. He did a joint album with the Mussolini called Scriptures in the Sky. So I think all 3 are worthwhile. So you could hear G4 Jag on his own with Still Surviving. But I think his albums are getting better every time. So the chronology counts. And I think the Dirty Diggs, they gave him the best soundscape that really accentuated his voice. And it could also be because if these are indeed chronological, because a lot of times they're not, he just is getting better. One thing about G4 Jag is that I feel his incredible voice, he doesn't always use it as a deliberate tool all the time. And if you listen to more of his work, you know what I mean, though. He's got Barry White level skill in the voice. So he's got to use it every single verse. He's like a Sadat X level, Cyrus Malachi. If we're thinking about deep voices of this era that are great. He's got to use that all the time. But the Mussolini, though, that's a dope MC too. A lot of style, lot of charisma, and he's definitely dope too. You want to hear what I'm saying about his style? Check out the song on it's in Scriptures in the Sky album called Gun Show. He's got the second verse though. Listen for that when you hear it. And all these albums are on Bandcamp. Good stuff. Good stuff. You know what I mean? And who else we got here? Oh yeah, I gotta get him up here. It's been too long since we built, but Starvin' B. Starvin' B has already released 2 albums, and he was, the last 2 years maybe not releasing too much stuff, and almost a little bit experimental with the tracks, And what's funny with Starvin' B is that the more boom bap, the more I'm gonna say this straight up, the more even maybe cliche the beat is, the more he shines on the beat. He's the ideal boom bap MC of this era, I think. You know what I mean? There's tons of MCs, they can all flow on these beats, but there's some type of special magic he has on the classical hip hop boom bap beat that he has. And the thing is that it's the way he glides on the beats. You know what I'm saying? He has a way of gliding on the beats where all the charisma comes out. The inflections are natural. Everything just comes really smooth. But one thing too that you get a lot on these 2 albums, The Melting Pot, and he just came out with an album with DJ NUT, DJ NUT. And by the way, everything that people do with DJ NUT is dope. It always comes out good. Zagnif did stuff, really dope. It's always dope. But that album is called Code of Ethics, and then you have his Melting Pot album. And I think you can, if you just search Starvin' B on Bandcamp, you'll find those. DJ and UT on Bandcamp as well, though. You know what I mean? But both those works sound incredible. And the thing about Starvin' B is that he's very subtle. He switches from charismatic punchlines to really having some great insight about these times we're in and about things in general. So, he's definitely an MC that never really, he never bombs you over the head. He's never didactic or preachy, But there's a lot of insight that his records have, though. People sleep on that. I think that's probably what people are really missing the most when they listen to Starvin' B records, you know? And I got to give a quick shout out to Starker, you know what I mean? Starker is like the great MC right now, the one that Peter Rosenberg loves, you know, because Peter Rosenberg picks one guy, you know what I mean? But it's well deserved. Starker is incredible. Perfect flow. He has that rolling monotone that now it's even better on different tones, you know what I'm saying? And different paces and stuff. And he's really mastering that slow tempo of menace, you know? Listen to that song on his new album, The Greenest Block, called Tony Luke's, you know what I mean? He sounds great on there. That slow tempo menace, you know what I mean? A lot of great stuff, you know? And I'll end this with a little highlight of the God out there in Canada, Ras Fresco. Ras Fresco has been doing a Magneto Was Right issue series of albums. The first issue is technically a 2019 release, but number 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all this year. The thing is, though, is that I thought this was just me, but other people I've heard say it that I respect their musical opinions on Twitter and that I talk to, but every single release is getting better. So I'm going to assume that they are probably chronological. You know what I mean? I got to ask Ras Fresco about that. Got to do a whole feature on him. But the thing about Ras Fresco is that maybe it's because the God was hyped that he acknowledged 120, but he's rhyming with so much energy. And it's also daring because Ras Fresco rhymes at tempos that everyone is afraid to rhyme at, you know what I mean? He's rhyming at very high speed tempos and not rhyming slow at those high speeds. He's going in on the projects, you know what I mean? So it's uncompromising there. But it's also uncompromising and refreshing to hear how his takes on his builds on knowledge of self, his commentaries, social commentaries, political commentaries that he's just thrown in there with there's no chill, you know what I mean? And it's just one of the highlights of this year, you know what I mean? And now that's over. You put all those together in a playlist. That Magneto Was Right series is one great catalog by itself. It's just a real great set, you know? So salute to God on that. But if you were starting, I'd go backwards. I'd go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you know what I mean? Just because. But, you know, with that said, hopefully all these coons out there don't bumble and stumble so much. And we keep talking about this great music that we have. And until next time, there'll be a lot more stories to tell, writings to recite, and records to rewind and reminisce. I'm your host, Sunez, a.k.a. S.STREET Low. And as always, the Power Right Show is a never respect fake broadcast. Peace.